Okay, so this is the April 1st video for Applied Math, and we're going to be looking at still percentages, still looking at percentages here. Obviously, the percentages that we did yesterday were like percentages off, like if you got 50% off an item or you had a coupon, you got 10% off. I want to look at some percentages where you're actually adding more onto your total. So sales tax is going to be one that we look at that you probably incur every day. Another one is going to be a tip, like when you leave a tip. Not just a tip like, hey, don't leave the light on too long. Not that kind of tip. A tip where you're actually paying money. So basically, we're going to start with this. There's lots of different taxes. Obviously, there's income tax, property tax, uh, you know, all these payroll tax. But sales tax is one that you deal with every day. Unless you live, there is a couple states that don't have sales tax. If you didn't know that, Oregon is one. That's where I was born. It does not have a sales tax. Now, don't think, oh wow, we'll all move to Oregon. They pay a lot in property tax, so their state still makes a lot of money if you live there. But as far as sales tax, they don't pay a sales tax. So if they go into a store and something says $5, when they go up to the register, it's $5. They don't have to pay a sales tax on top of that. But that's not common. Most of the time, we are paying a sales tax. Now, most are in the 7 to 10% range. So you may go into a store and it's like 7.3%, and that the reason why it changes is depending on the city, because you also have city taxes and stuff. But that's a common one. That's actually kind of on the low end. If you go into like the Branson Landing or something, sometimes those can be 9 to 10%, or even a little bit higher. So it depends on where you're at. So you can't necessarily always know the exact amount you're going to pay wherever you're going, because it changes from city to city. But you can have a rough idea and be able to figure out, so you know what you're going to be paying. It's nice to know that, because if you're having to keep at a perfect limit of what you're spending, it's good to know about how much you're going to be paying in sales tax, especially on big items. If you're going to buy a TV and it's $300, well, you kind of need to know in advance, well, how much am I going to be paying in sales tax probably, so that I know if I have enough money to purchase this item, or if I want to spend that much. But basically, that's kind of where you fall, somewhere in the 7 to 10%. Usually, when I'm in a store and I'm trying to figure out, I usually use 8%. It's a nice even number, and it usually falls in that average. But that way you kind of know. Now, the most of them are going to not be a perfect percent, like right at 8 or right at 7. They're going to be like 7.6 or 8.4 or something. So we're going to look at how you can figure that before you go up to the register. So let's look at just going in and buying an item and figuring out what the sales tax will be. So if you're going to go buy an item that's $100, okay, let me change markers here. These markers, until I'm out of self-quarantine, I'm hoping they last for me, and usually markers don't always last for me, but we'll see. I can't throw them in the trash can either from here. For those that have had me before and know how I like to do that, because I got to hang on to them. But if I go in and buy a $100 item, and let's say I'm paying 8.2% tax on that, okay? Well, just like we did when we did percentages off, we're going to find what 8.2% of $100 is, okay? So we're going to actually take the decimal, move it twice, okay? And we're going to keep that 2 in there, because we want to be as accurate as possible and figure out what 8.2% of $100. Now, if you're using your calculator and you put that in, you're going to get, which I think it's 8.2 obviously, but we just put it in, just see. So you just do 100 times 0.082, and you get 8.2, okay? So that is how you'd put it in if you're doing it by calculator, 100 times 0.082, and you're going to get 8.2. Now what that means is $8.20 is going to be what you pay above the $100. Okay, so you're paying the $100 still. You didn't get a discount. You're just paying that for the item, and then you're adding in $8.20 for your tax. Okay, Should have lined that up a little bit better, but it's 108.20 then. So what you're going to be doing when you do the problems for the assignment is you're going to be finding out what the tax is going to come to. It's not going to always be this easy where you're doing it times a nice even number, but you're going to take that then. You're not just paying $100. You're not just paying $8.20. You're paying both together. So you're going to have to total that up to see what your total cost is going to be. Now, as far as sales tax, what's nice about that is it's not like the discount where maybe only one item of your purchase is discounted, or some things are 50% off and some are 20. The sales tax is for your whole purchase. The only exception to that is I think some food places or some food items when you buy at a grocery store sometimes don't have a tax on them, depending on essential goods and how they do that. But pretty much everything you pay that sales tax. So you can add up your whole total of your cart and wait till you're completely done with your total to then figure out your sales tax for that one purchase. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do one that's a little more not as even as $100. Let's say you're buying something for $52.57. Okay, so the item is that on the shelf, and you're going to pay, let's say, 8.9%. Okay, so 8.9%. So we need, the first thing you have to do is turn that into a decimal so that you can multiply that times your total. And so it's going to be 0.089. Okay, and you're going to multiply that. This we will use a calculator. And so we're going to get, let's see, 52.57 times 0.089. And we get 4.67873. And I wanted to do one like this because we're talking about money, and so we're having to deal with our currency, and we're going to have to go beyond what our currency is and then figure out, well, what's that mean as far as actual price. So here was our original 52.57. Okay, we're going to add in what we're paying here for sales tax, and so our currency stops right here. Okay, it stops at the 7. We've got the dollars, the dimes, the pennies, and so they're going to round up in this case because this is 5 or higher. So this is actually going to go to the 8th cent. Okay, so this is actually going to be $4.68, and you need to do that when you're doing your practice problems. You need to round either down if this is a 4 or below, this stays a 7, or if this is a 5 or higher, this is going to go up to an 8 in this case. So it went up to an 8, and now you're going to add your total together. Okay, so 15, 12, and you get 57.25. So round when you get done with this, and then just add your new rounded total to this. Okay, so when you do your practice problems, make sure you do your percentage first, move the decimal over, do your multiplication, and then you do your total here, and you find your tax. Then you're going to, this right here, the reason why you add it is so that you can find your total from your cost of your item plus your tax. Okay, and so you add that. Someone asked on the earlier videos about the gasoline thing that I talked about, and this comes up again here. Like if gas, in this case, I heard today it was down to $1.49 even. That little 9 that's written there, that means it's got another, it's like 1.499. They write the 9 smaller so that you think that you're not paying anything more, but you are. So every gallon of gas, you're paying an extra 9/10 of a penny. So every gallon of gas, you're paying 0.9 cents more. So you say, well, that's, so you're paying $1.49. You're paying the extra 9/10. Well, the next one, you're paying $1.49. You're paying another 9/10. So already, from 2 gallons of gas, you're paying 1.8 extra cents. And then another penny, you're paying, or 9/10 of a penny, you're paying 2.7 cents. You're paying almost 3 cents more. So every gallon of gas, you're going up 0.9 of a cent. And that starts to add up over time with all the purchases that you make and that all the customers make in a day. That 9/10 of a penny actually, makes a difference. So, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to do the percentages. You're going to find out the tax, add that to your total, and that's what you're going to be finding your total. The other thing I'm going to have you do on this assignment is, let's say you go to buy a meal, and because most of the time things you tip on are meals. You can tip at anything. You know, we were just in New York not too long ago, and you know, someone, you know, there's so many things that they do on the street there that that you end up tipping for. You know, and so, you know, I'm not talking about like, hey, here's $5. This is most of the time when you're paying for a meal, and we know, you know, there's a percentage that you leave that's acceptable. Not that you have to tip. You know, I'm not. This is not a lesson in like good tipping or what you should do. It's just how to do the math of it. Okay, so, you know, some people feel like, well, 15%, that's all I get. You know, or maybe you say, well, 15% is my lowest, and I always go above that from there. And so, you know, this will give you an idea how to do the math, and then you decide however much you want to tip, or if you want to tip at all. But basically, tip works the same way as a tax. But there was a huge discussion with my family one time about, do you tax off the meal before, or do you tip before the tax has been added or after? And I've always tipped off the total with the tax, because they usually total it up for you with the tax, and then I tip off of that. But we got to talking about states like Oregon that don't have a sales tax. Their tip is also going to be lower because their total was lower. Small meals, it doesn't make that much of a difference, but let's say you bought a $200 meal. Let's say it was a big family and you bought a $200 meal. Well, let's say you left we'll just make it easy for the math real quick, you left a 20% tip off of that. Well, if you left a 20% tip before the tax was added, you would just do that, and it's going to be $40. So you left $240 for a 20% tip, and that was just tipping off the food price. But if you did $200, and let's say it was let's say you were eating at the Landing, and it was a 10% tax, well, then that right there is $20. Okay, and now your new total is $220, and if you tip off that, well, then you're paying $44. Okay, and so, or yeah, for the tip. So you're actually paying $264 at that point. Where in this case, you were paying. You do have to add your tax eventually though, and so you're only paying $260 on this one. That's $4 difference just from tipping before the tax and tipping after the tax. And so it became a discussion with our family, like, well, which is acceptable, and that's, like I said, that's a decision you have to make. I'm not advocating for or against it. Just showing you that the math can change it, you know, based off, do you tip before the tax or do you tip after? What I'm going to have you do for these problems is tip after the tax, so that you can get practice of doing a tax, adding that to the total, and then tipping off that new total. So you're going to be doing two totals on this. So let's say I go into a restaurant, I buy a meal, and let's say I bought it for two people, and it came to, we'll go $60. Okay, expensive meal, we ate nice, $60 meal. Nowadays that could be even just Taco Bell or something for two people, but basically that's your total, and then you have to find your tax first. So let's do an 8% tax. We'll keep it even, 0.08, 8%. Okay. Okay, move the decimal 4 times. So my tax was $4.80. That's the tax. That's before I tip. And so what you have to do is find the tax first, which we just did. Then you're going to have to add that to your original total. So $60 plus $4.80. Okay, $64.80. Now I'm going to tip off of that. Okay, I'm not going to tip off the $60 because that's before tax. I'm going to do my tax first, add it to my total, and then tip off of this. And so let's say I want to leave a 20% tip. Okay? And I'm going to have you do different tips. So 15%, 18%. You know, and I'll do another one this one I'm trying to do just, you know, more even numbers so it can be done quickly. But basically then I'm going to multiply this total times 20%. Okay. Okay, and move my decimal 4 times. So, oh, yeah. Okay, so, check my math here. Thought I made my first math mistake. So $12.96, because this is where the currency ends, $12.96. And so I'm going to take the $64.80. I have to pay that, otherwise they're not going to let me leave the restaurant. That's what I'm required to pay, is the meal plus the tax. They're not going to let me leave unless I pay that. And then I'm going to tip $12.96. So I'm going to add that to it. I'm going to be paying $77.76 off a $60 meal. Okay, so just to go through, you're going to do you got your total of your meal. You're going to do it times your tax, get $4.80. You're going to add that to your meal, and then you're going to multiply that new total times the tip, get that, and add it to this total. Okay, so let's do one more of those. And this one I'm going to make a little bit harder. So let's say my meal came to, let's say $72. Let's say I bought it for a bigger family. $72.75. Okay, and the tip or the tax was 9.1%. Okay, so that's going to be my first problem, is the total times the tax. Okay, so I'm going to put that in the calculator actually, and you could do the same. So $72.75 times 0.091 is 6.62025. So what you're going to do here is, I want you to go ahead and round here, because I want you to see what you would have to pay without leaving any tip. Okay, so $72.75. This one you're going to round to the nearest penny, which is there, which means it stays at 2 because that's a 0. Okay, so it's going to be $72.75 plus $6.62. The rest of this you do not need. Okay, you're going to add that to that. Okay, so you got $79.37. This is what you have to pay to even leave the restaurant. Otherwise, you're going to be washing dishes in the back or something. So here is $79.37. That's my new total. Okay, so do that first. Do your total times your tax, add it to it. Here's your new total. Then you're going to tip. Let's say most restaurants, suggest a tip. Some have, I've noticed on receipts now, that they do the tip. I've noticed most of the time they do it after the tax. They also, if you ever notice, if you used a coupon, they do it before the coupon's even deducted. A lot of times they'll do the tip based off of what your meal would have been. So that's another whole discussion. Do you tip because they served you the meal that you had before the coupon? So anyway, but we're going to take this total and we're going to multiply it. Let's do an 18%. That's kind of right in the, like above the 15 but below the 20. So we're going to do 18%. There's some restaurants that charge you tip no matter what, meaning if you came in with a big group, they say, on the signs, we do charge a mandatory tip of 18% or something for parties of 6 or more. So that one, that you can't leave the restaurant unless you pay the tip as well. So we're going to do this times this. So let's do 79.37 times 0.18, and we get 14.2866. Okay, and so here's my tip. Once again, we're dealing with money, so this is the pennies. That penny is going to go up because that's a 5 or higher. So my tip is going to be $14.29. Okay, $14.29. So now, to get my total, the one that you have turned in for your answer, I'm going to have to take this total and add it to this total and find out my complete total with tax and tip. Okay, so $79.37 plus $14.29 gives me 16, 6, 13, 9. If you can't see that, it's 93.66. Okay, that's my final total is 93.66. Okay, so that's what you're going to do with the second set of problems I'm going to give you. You're going to find your meal price after tax, then tip. Okay, so let me go ahead and put that up there, those problems up there. And this is what you're going to take a photo of and upload. Hopefully you watch the video. If you're still struggling with uploading a video, make sure you watch that video I posted on how to upload a video for Google Classroom. And make sure you put it on the Google Classroom now if you would, because when I'm getting emails, I don't always get them in that order to where I can keep them in your class and grade them. So make sure you're doing it on the Google Classroom, and make sure when you put the photos and upload them that you're hitting submit, okay? Otherwise it doesn't show you've turned it in, and so to give you a grade on that, it needs submitted. What I want you to do is, these first are just finding the sales tax, and then adding that and finding your total cost, okay? So you're gonna do 8% tax on $50. Okay, once you find that tax, you're going to add it to the $50 and find your total. Okay, final total I'll put. Okay, the $50 plus the 8% tax. Then number 2, I want you to find 7% tax on $34. Okay, and find your total. And then 8.2% tax on $45.50, and find your total. Now some of these here you'll have to round, get some practice with rounding, okay, and find your total. Then the second set of problems that I want you to do is what we just did with the meal, okay, and so I want you to find the tax, and then tip off that new total, and then give me the complete total of your meal price that you're going to pay for the meal, the tax, and the tip. Okay, so that's going to be a $50 meal. So number 4 is a $50 meal, 8% tax, and a 15% tip. Okay, and then total that up. You're going to do a $100 meal. I'll put some people, that drives them nuts. $100 meal, 7.4% tax, and a 20% tip. Okay, and then the last one is a $75 meal. Oops, about did it again. 9.1% tax, and 18% tip. Okay? On all these, you're finding the total after all of it, not just each one individually. Find the tax, find the tip, and then add it together. But when you take your photo, make sure you take your photo of all your work, and that way I can look and see if you made mistakes. Now, I'm not grading these as far as, I'm not grading them individually. I'm putting the answers to both as you go on. So that reminds me too, I was going to do yesterday's. So if you've been waiting patiently to get those answers, let me find those problems. Oh yeah. So the ones from yesterday, so if you've hung around, and I left those up there long enough so you can pause if you need to on them to copy them down. I'm going to put yesterday's answers and do those real quick so that you've got those. Okay. So 50% of 120, okay, was $60. 40% of $75, okay, you're taking 75 times 0.4, okay, so let me do that real quick. Is $30. Oh, and I think, yeah, what I had you do is also take that discount off. So if you're getting $30, which this one, you're getting $60 off, you take 60 off, you get $60. This one, if you take $30 off of $75, then you get 45. You're going to be paying $45. Okay? So the $30 is how much the percent off. You find it, you're going to pay 45. And then the last one is 25% off of 100. Okay, so that means you got $100 and you take off 25%, so you're multiplying that times 0.25, you get $25. So you take that off, your new total is $75, and then you're going to take 15% off of that. So you're going to take 75 times 0.15 is $11.25. Okay, and so that's $11.25. So that's what comes off of the 75. Okay, and you should have got $63.75. Okay, so that's what you would have paid had you gotten those without tax. Obviously, we did these before tax, so that's what you should have got for those three. So if you hung around, hopefully you watched that. You can add those and check your work on those that you took a photo of yesterday. And that's it for this video. Thank you.